Welcome to Rogue Bogues. This is episode 15, the basketball pod. Welcome, Mike. What's going on?
Bogues, how you doing, brother?
Never a dull moment. We have a lot to get through. It's been a fun week, a lot of off-court drama as well. So I'm sure you've been following that. We've been texting back and forth about it, but never a dull moment in the NBA.
I mean, this shit writes itself. Like when you asked me about this podcast like a few months ago, I was like, what are we going to like talk about? Fucking box scores? And then like every other day there's something that, and then today there's like 4 things that came in. So it's like it literally, for someone who always did his homework 5 minutes before class, it's a perfect thing to cover because there's a million things that come up and you don't even have to try sometimes and it just comes across your lap.
Oh man, I changed the run sheet like 5 times, but I guess that's what makes it fun. But a few housekeeping issues. We have some complaints we've got to get to. Pro swears too much. That's number 1.
Oh boy.
So we're going to try to limit. We'll give you a couple of swears per segment. Apparently, too many fat jokes. I'm not sure. Are you fat enough to make that many fat jokes?
You've been around me, brother. Come on. I mean, seriously, like they have to open up retractable roofs to let me in arenas sometimes. So, but I could cut those down. But like, I take the Popeye approach, brother. I am who I am. I don't apologize for it. Although I'm not overly vulgar. I do swear a lot. But I mean, it's either you could have this or you could have me be fake like 98% of other people who do podcasts and be like nice and, like tweet out God is great and then end up like cheating on my wife and fucking, beating up strippers and stuff. I mean, I could do that. Or they could go to Joel Osteen's podcast where they don't swear, but it'll cost you about $30,000 in donations. So there's a few ways, but you know what? I'll try to watch. I'll try to watch myself, but I thought we could be genuine here and try to do a good job. But I will watch the fat jokes a little bit. I know people aren't like me. I'm not really all that sensitive, but some people aren't really great with it. So I'll try to limit it, Bogues.
No, that's all.
I don't want to get in trouble with HR.
Yeah, we want it to be natural. So do you. Just bringing some things up from the fans. I got to stop saying especially with the X. So that's
really?
That's been noted a few times. Apparently, I think just because I say it so fast, it sounds like an X, especially. But I do know it's spelt with an S. Everyone out there, but thanks for the feedback. We'll try our best, but don't hold your breath on either of those. I don't think, right?
Huh? Yeah, we'll try it. Let's go to work.
All right. Well, we're going to open with something I was discussing with in a group chat with yourself and Ethan Strauss, actually. But is the league juiced right now, numbers wise? Are we seeing a league that's juiced? A player's numbers inflated? I have some season stats here. I'm just going to go through the top 5 in all the categories real quick. I'll do the top 3 from each of them. So points per game right now, 31.3 for Brad Beal, leading the league. Dame Lillard comes in at just under 30, 29.9. Steph Curry, 29.2. Rebounds, Capella's got 14.1. Gobert, second, 13.3. Valanciunas, 12.5 in third. Assists per game, Harden with 11.1. Yeah, Westbrook, 10.7. Number 3, Trae Young, 9.6. Blocks per game, you got Miles Turner with 3.5. Rudy Gobert, 2.9. Clint Capella, 2.3. Steals per game, Drew Holiday, 1.8. Kawhi, 1.8. TJ McConnell, 1.8. So a 3-way tie there. Field goal percentage, you got Gobert, and then a list of big guys leading that, obviously. Gobert's at 65% right now, which is extraordinary. 3-pointers made, Steph Curry number 1, Buddy Hield number 2, Lillard number 3, all tied. 3-way tie for 193 makes. 3-point percentage, which is an interesting one we'll get into a little bit later. Tony Snell is leading the league right now at 57.1%, which is amazing. We'll get into that shortly. Joe Ingles, my guy, 49.4. Joe Harris, 48.5. Fantasy points, so I guess everything they do joined together, which is basically a PER or per. Jokic leads that at a 55.8. Giannis second, Harden third, Doncic, Westbrook. But I mean, how do you see it? I've gone back and I've got I did some data really quickly. I did some homework, but how do you see it? Do you think right now the numbers we see in the league are juiced up a little bit?
Well, Bogues, when you and I were speaking about it, at first I'm like, maybe he's got a point. I mean, 57 is really high for Snell and just leading the league in threes. And I'm like, all these guys like Bradley Beal scoring a hell of a lot of points. The assists are high. The rebounds are a little bit. But then I went back to like since 2011, 2012, so basically 10 years. So I'll just go what I have real quick. And it's about average across the board except the threes. The threes are up about 9.2%. But points per game leader is about 31.1. We're at 31.3. Assists 10.9. We're at 11.1. Rebounds 14.5 average. We're at 14.1 with the leader. Blocks are a little high, 3.5 versus 3. Steals are down. It's 1.8. The leader. The average is 2.2. Field goal percentage, 68.4 is the average leader. Threes made, 294.5 for the year is high. The highest right now is at 193. If you prorate that, that's at about 289. And then the threes we talked about. Now, the reason why I think some of these numbers are high when we have these things going on is obviously because of style of play. I mean, if you look at it like 12 years, I went back team numbers to like games, like averages and things, points per game collectively in a game. 2009, 2010 was at 200. We're at 223.2 this year, average every game. Shots per game is up by about 6.6. Threes are from 36.2 in 2009, 2010 to 69.4 a game. So like obviously the amount of threes, the scoring. Now the funny thing is like free throws per game hasn't really gone up, and free throw percentage is usually right around the same, as well as 3-point percentage. Now the makes are higher and the takes are higher, obviously, but the percentages are around anywhere from 35 to 37 in the last 10, 12 years. So yeah, we could talk about, I'll talk about Snell later, but what are your thoughts on it, Bogues? Like, because you brought it up and I thought it was a good point, because you know how players are, especially with contracts and, trying to get ranked high in the league, like trying to I've coached, you played with a bunch of guys who probably hunted rebounds, hunted threes, hunted points, and they know they want to get theirs. Regardless if they win or lose, they want to get their stats, for one reason or another, bonuses or MVP race or all-star, things like that. What are your thoughts on it?
I thought it was juiced until I looked at the numbers, like you said. So I just did points per game and based it upon points per game. And so you look at the top three right now in the NBA as we stand. Beal's at 31.3, Lillard at 29.9. Steph Curry's at 29.2. So I decided to go back, 3 decades essentially. I've gone back to 1980, and the top three then was Dantley had 30.7 points a game. So a little bit under what Beal's averaging. Moses Malone was at 27.8. George Gervin was at 27.1. You move to 1990. Michael Jordan was at 31.5, so currently beating today's leader in Bradley Beal. Karl Malone, 29.0. Bernard King, 28.4. And then you go to the year 2000 in Allen Iverson, 31.1. Jerry Stackhouse, 29.8. And Shaquille O'Neal at 28.7. So not a huge difference. I thought there would be a bigger disparity, but it just, I don't know, maybe just seems that way. But I think as a whole, collectively, there's a whole lot more players in the 20s than there was back in the day. That's been the big difference, in my opinion, because the style of play has obviously changed. And you look at like an AI, I mean, his usage was insane when he played with Philly. Everything went through him. MJ the same for the most part until Phil got there. Everything was gone through him. Shaquille O'Neal the same. So I think what's changed is you got a lot of like probably mid-level guys now that are averaging 20s because the way the game is kind of coached has changed.
Yeah, I agree. The pace is a lot higher. The style of play. I think there's a lot more people like clunked in there. Like before you might have someone, now I didn't check this, but now like the top 5 scorers in the league, 31-3, 29-9, 29-9, 29-2, 28-8. It's a lot of close races and guys are clunked in together, where it's not like a 5 or 6 point differential from 1 or 2. It's right there, and everybody's a lot of high 20s there. And I just think the style of play, I always used to, with player development, I used to always tell our guys, look, there's 450 players in the league. There's only about 100 players that get 10 shots a game. Well, that number is probably up to about 115 that get 10 shots or more a game. So more shot attempts, more threes, more points. Not necessarily a huge jump, but I think a lot more people are sort of, I think in the middle, are inflating their numbers because of the style of play. And that's sort of a lot higher. I think you notice those things. I just think that the game's changed, and that's the product of it. And it's not necessarily affecting the top, but probably more the middle than the top.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think the optics sometimes look worse, but then the numbers prove you wrong. They've proved me wrong in this case. I thought the way the game's refereed, it is much tighter, and you adjust, players adjust, but it felt like free throws would be at an all-time high these last 5 or 6 years. And then you look at the free throw numbers, and there was an era in the 40s or 50s where there was over 30 free throw shot a game. So, it hasn't really changed that much. And like we've always discussed, players will get smart, they'll adapt, coaches will adapt, and hey, you can't have an armbar anymore on a guy on a drive if he's facing up. You can't even have a fingertip on him. Teams and players are going to adjust, and I think that's happened. But one interesting one that we brought up was Tony Snell. So, 57.1% is insane to shoot from the 3-point line. So straight away, I had to look at the numbers, because I'm like, look, is this barely one free 3-point attempt? Is this just small numbers, small case study? So of course he's leading the league, but it's respectable. He's only averaging 5.5 points per game, but he's playing 20.9 minutes per game at the moment. His 3-point field goal percentage is 57.1. That's on 1.4 makes for 2.5 attempts. I wouldn't say it's a big bunch of threes that he's shooting, equivalent to a Joe Ingles or a Joe Harris or anyone else in that top 5, but it's still respectable, and that's a pretty insane number. So I looked back, and the all-time league leader, all-time NBA history, is Kyle Korver, who shot 53.6% from beyond the arc in 2009-10 season with the Utah Jazz. He's the current all-time leader, obviously, as I just said. His numbers were, he made 1.1 three-pointers for 2.1 attempted for 53.6%. So Snell's arguably taken more than that, and he'll be deserved to be crowned the all-time leader, in my opinion, if he keeps this up. What are your thoughts?
So I went back today and watched all 91 of his 3-point attempts. And I think any young player, I don't care what level you are, should watch how Tony Snell shoots his threes, because he doesn't hunt them. He doesn't do that bullshit sidestep, step back, cha-cha-cha bullshit with 3 hands on him. He doesn't shoot from 38 feet away from the basket. All he does, Bogues, is they spread it out. They've got Trae Young. They had Rondo, Bogdanovich. They would drive, kick to him in the corner, and it's a spot up 3. The only thing that he would do is maybe jab at a guy once in a while. He could shoot him while he's contested, but while the guy's running at him, and he could shoot the 3, he doesn't try to dribble, doesn't try to ISO. He doesn't do anything that he can't do. He's wired like a fucking sniper. Oh, excuse me. I apologize. There's my one. He's wired like a sniper.
Yeah.
He's like, if you watch Bradley Cooper in American Sniper, he's like that. I've been around him a little bit, and Bogues, he gets good threes. And the 2.5 that he shoots a game, they're mostly all good looks, unless it's end of game clock or end of shot clock. And that's why he shoots 57.1%. He doesn't hunt them like these other guys do. He doesn't try to shoot them in transition like these other guys do. He doesn't try to emulate guys when they set screen and rolls 27 feet from the basket, and the guy goes under and he tries to shoot behind the screen. He just does what he does. He's a really good shooter. A lot of guys are good shooters in that league, but they take so many bad shots, they end up being at 37%. Or 36 or 35. Now, he's a high up to the extreme, but watching those shots, I'm like, if I'm working with a player trying to make it, I'm saying, watch this guy. Don't watch Curry. Don't watch Lillard. Don't watch McCollum. No offense to those guys. Those guys are elite shooters in the league. And they're elite shot makers that one way or another, and they do what they do. But this guy learns how to survive in this league. He's at 57, so he knows what he's doing. And it's not like he's shooting 0.2 per game, and he's just gets the number of minimum attempts. He gets a decent amount of looks, not a high number, but a decent number. And this guy just gets good looks. And when you're hunting threes and you're taking all these contested shots off one leg, trying to be Dirk Nowitzki, it's hard, man. It's hard. This guy doesn't do that. And he puts his team in a position to win because he's efficient. He can make shots. He doesn't do anything that he can't do. And he's a a sniper. He's an impressive kid to watch if you're trying to learn how do I get my shots? He's the American Ryan Brokoff.
And that's it. I assume, I haven't seen a lot of those clips that you speak about, but I assume my assumption would be that he catches it, he's wide open, he shoots it. If he doesn't, he moves it on and makes the right decision with it. And that's just a testament to a lot of kids in college and high school that are trying to make it. If you do one thing in the league at an elite level, whether it be, you look at like a TJ McConnell, for instance, he's notorious for picking up full court. And that's what's kind of got him minutes. And now he's starting to get his assist numbers up. He doesn't shoot a three, he won't shoot a three, but he picks up full court at an elite level. Tony Snell, feet set, elite level. You're going to play minutes, you're going to make a living. And sometimes we have guys, like you said, that get caught up in, hey, I want to shoot that step back like James Harden. Well, there's only one of those guys generally per team with that license, maybe two. Some teams don't even have guys with that license. So you kind of want to aim for a Snell and a McConnell at times. And sometimes they're disrespected by fans, by other players, but they're going to make, some decent money. They'll be able to retire with a pretty decent bank account just from doing one thing elite.
Boys and girls at home, the guy averages 5 a game. He makes $12.2 million a year because he can do one thing better than most people on the planet. And he can make threes, and he does what he does well, and he doesn't try to do things that he doesn't do well. And I've worked with countless players. A lot of them made it. A lot of them went on to do good things, but a lot of them refused to listen as well. And wanted to fight that, wanted to watch those highlights every night, wanted to do those Instagram workouts where it's a tire, a chain, jumping over hoods of cars before they shoot the ball in these workouts in the summer, and they don't do anything for you. This guy works on, and I watch his pregame workouts. I have him at home. I have all the pregame workouts from my couple years in Dallas of the opposing team and watching what he does. He comes in, he gets his shots. He doesn't work on anything that he doesn't do in games. And the guy's a sniper, and he's one of the best in the world at doing it. And I got a lot of high praise for him.
Yeah, fantastic. It's fantastic. Hopefully he keeps it up. And if he keeps shooting at that clip, he's going to be the all-time record holder. And I mean, I don't see someone beating that. I mean, if he holds at 57.1%, that's going to be a record for a very long time, in my opinion, especially if you're shooting over one a game. I mean, you might get some small sample sizes of a few role players that are shooting, like you said, 0.5 or some shit, but we don't count those. And I think you got to have, there's a minimum attempt you have to take per season, I think, and I think it's around 1 or 2 per game. So anyhow, we'll get to some fun dramas. Kevin Durant, Michael Rappaport.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Oh boy. All right. Some DMs were leaked by Rappaport. Now I think that's a separate issue. I don't respect the fact that he leaked those DMs. The DMs were clearly had his replies probably deleted and edited somehow. But look, there were some unfortunate things said by KD and some language that you don't condone, especially in today's environment. But these are in a kind of a closed forum, probably a bit of banter involved. I'm not excusing what he said, but for Rappaport to leak that is one thing. But for number two is, there might be a bit of a double standard here. I mean, KD is one of the league's best players, potential MVP candidate at one point. And you look only to a few weeks back with Miles Leonard and the issue that he faced. Obviously a role player, guy that doesn't play a lot, made some anti-Semitic comments during a live stream, basically got railroaded out of the league for the season. And now you look at what KD said, which in my opinion, even though it was banter, the fact that it's been leaked now, when you look at it, the eye test, it's probably worse than what Leonard said, because there was a lot more of it, unfortunately. Just a $50,000 fine, and it's kind of being pushed under the rug. But how have you seen all that over there with all the ESPN talking heads and whatnot covering it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's sort of dominating the sports talk world, and everybody wants to play God about what's worse, what's worse, who should get fined more, and things like that, and. I try to stay out of that. I definitely agree with you as far as screenshotting DMs and putting it out there. I work with some people who did that in the past, and that's some pussy shit right there. And I don't agree with it. And I don't agree with that. That's cowardly to do that shit.
Especially from the point of view of context. Like, you don't know, like, once again, for all the people out there, they're going to be alarmed. I'm not condoning what the words used and what was said, but there's the context in some group chats. I'm in some group chats where there's some crazy shit said, but hey, that guy just talks shit nonstop and just likes to banter and say crazy things. Hey, this is in this context. When you look at it just on the context of print, of text, where you don't know what exactly was going on before that. Is that a relationship they've had for years? Whatever, right? I mean, it's very hard to judge from that point of view, in my opinion. But like you said, I mean, to leak that, I mean, Rappaport obviously was clout chasing for last 3 or 4 years with his Trump videos, which was fine. I mean, some of them are funny, some of them weren't, in my opinion. Depends what you think is crossing the line and what isn't. But it seems like KD's his next target, and poor old KD's, bantering with a few journalists, which is a whole separate issue as well. We should probably let a lot of that shit go. But then he's in the national news right now as he's trying to rehab an injury. Yeah,
I never tell a guy how to feel. So obviously, look, this is what the social media stuff is, and it does to you. You put yourself out there by saying something, regardless of if it was, if it was hardcore or not, that, maybe you should ignore it or not. That's not up to us. That's up to him. He could sort of say what he wants now to a certain degree, and he has to pay the piper with it as far as it getting out, and now the league has to deal with it. And however he wants to respond to it is fine. Michael Rappaport's a shot blocker, right? And shot blockers are going to get dunked on once in a while. And KD fucking dunked on him something fucking fierce, and with the responses and things, and there was nothing else he could say, but now you got to pay the piper when that shit gets out. And look, the league, the slang and whatever he was saying, that's one thing, but the threats, regardless if you're just talking shit or not, you're trying to, the league is such a cash cow. Everyone's getting paid in that fucking league, and it's a shitload of money. I think I went over my swear, but I don't give a fuck. I'll buy a pass for next week. But everyone's making a shitload of money, and you're trying to protect this money. And when the stuff like this leaks and gets out, it doesn't make anybody look good. And the threats is what probably impacts that almost as much as the other stuff that he was saying. And the league has to serve so many gods, with so many of the groups they're trying to protect that sort of affiliated with the league. They have to respond. But the threats is what sort of got to me. That's a little unprofessional, whatever. But but the social media stuff, you want to talk shit all the time, like Rappaport does. Hey, look, I have a great Rappaport story. It was All-Star break 3 years ago. He was doing an All-Star deal with God Sham God, an All-Star break in Charlotte. I'm in Disney World. I lose my family for a second. I'm walking 200 yards from Space Mountain. I get a FaceTime call from God Sham God. I'm like, fucking All-Star break. What does he want? He should be chilling somewhere on a beach, not calling my fat ass. And I answer it. It's fucking Rappaport. And I'm a huge Rappaport fan. I think he's funny. Not all the time, but I think he's funny. So I have a Barstool Sports hat on. And if anyone doesn't know, he had this huge thing with Barstool Sports where they went to court against each other. They fired him. So he starts cussing me out right away. Now it's half banter, half not. I start cussing back at him. I said, you C-list motherfucker. What do you He's going back at me for being, fat, bald, or whatever. You work for the NBA. It's bullshit. I said, whatever. So we were going back and forth, but that's my Rappaport story. So I got all these families looking at me in the middle of Disney World. I'm like, oh God, this ain't going great. But if you want to talk like that all the time with all these other people, sometimes people are going to come back at you. He did that Trump stuff for 4 years. And Trump never went back at him. He likes to do that stuff. And someone's going to come back at you. And this is what happens. And now KD gets fined $50,000. Rappaport's going to have to get another C-list gig and be barista number 3 to make that $50,000 back and put it back in KD's pocket. But it's just one of these things, man. This stuff, look, you react the way you want to react to it, but it probably shouldn't have happened. Probably should have walked away from it, but I'm not the one to judge that. If he wants to do what he does, but Rappaport doesn't look great in this. And then the lawyering up stuff in the sending the messages out. That's not cool in my book.
Oh, the Barstool Sports stuff, I follow that a little bit just because of this KD thing. And Barstool Presidente, Portnoy.
Yeah.
He was suing him because they basically were firing Rappaport at one point, and they knew that he'd kind of go extremely aggressive with some hate for them online. So then Portnoy apparently had he had some memes made of him already, and as soon as Rappaport fired back, they posted those in return, and then Rappaport's then filed a defamation suit. So if you're a comedian, like you said, if you're a comedian slash social influencer, commentator, whatever, it'd be like us suing someone for swearing too much. Like read the room. Like you do this every day for a living, essentially, and now you're suing Barstool for taking the piss out of you. Like, you can't, dude. Like, I lost a lot of respect for Rappaport. I didn't mind him neither. Like I said, some of his stuff's funny, some of it isn't. But the fact that you've posted DMs and now you just lost your court case against Portnoy, which is a shit show for Rappaport's side of things. His lawyer totally screwed that up. I'm not sure if you saw it, but for people that want to have a laugh, I think Portnoy's posted the actual hearing of him giving his kind of account of events, and it all went in his favor and he got off. But that's where we're at. And then, look, moving on from that, we move on to about to start this podcast, and then I wake up to a Paul Pierce video.
Oh, Jesus.
Which was absolutely, so for those who haven't seen it, I posted it on Twitter and I put a smug comment saying that he's helping ESPN's push for women's empowerment by posting that video. But I mean, geez, man, like he's done a live Instagram feed at his house, I assume, with a few of his friends, with some strippers twerking in the background. And you're just like, man, what are you doing? Like, it's, there's certain things that you want to do. By all means, you're a grown man, go and do what you want. But I'm not sure with everything going on in the world, that's probably the best route to take on your Instagram live. Yeah,
I mean, I woke up to that this morning and I'm like, what the fuck is going on with this? Like, it just doesn't give, I've known Paul since I was in Boston with him, and it just doesn't make ex-players look great, doesn't make NBA players look great. He's got a career with ESPN. I think he does a great job as an analyst. When they go to, spots when he's talking about the game, he knows a lot.
Unless you mention D Wade.
Yeah, exactly. It just doesn't good. It's just that it doesn't make him look good. Doesn't make ESPN look good. It's not a good deal, man. It's an unprofessional. Over 40, technology and alcohol definitely doesn't fucking go. Because that, especially when you don't understand technology and how Instagram works. I barely know how the fuck Instagram works, but that's definitely not the refresher course you want to take as far as trying to learn how to use it on the fly, because shit like that happens. It doesn't make anyone look good, man.
Yeah, and there'll be two things I say to that. Like the Paul Pierce video, I'm not condoning what he did. If he wants to spend his time, doing that and hanging out with strippers, by all means, stimulate the economy, and we joke about that all the time. But don't be surprised. That is normal in professional sports for the most part. It's just not normal to video record it. So that's one thing. And then the one thing I'd say about the KD thing is, for all the people out there that are judging him about what he said, go into your phone and get out a few of you, get out the worst text message that you can find in there, whether it's banter with your wife, a friend, a buddy from high school, a group chat, and post that shit online. I guarantee you'll get some heat for it. I don't know what people would say. There's different things. You could be saying, I hate Andrew Bogut. He's an effing dickhead. I hate him. Like, that's pretty derogatory. So there's people on a high horse that they're thinking like, I'm perfect. Then yeah, bullshit. You take out the worst text message or group chat you've got on your phone. I can guarantee you, if you were in the limelight or a person that was well known, you'd cop some shit for it. So let's not all sit there and think that we we're all perfect, because I've got group chats where there's a bit of banter going on, and sometimes you say things that you're just trying to insult each other a little bit and toe the line. And if you take that screenshot and post it online with no context, guess what happens?
Yeah, everybody does that in group chats. Everybody. I don't give a fuck who you are. Like we go a little dark when in there. I'm not saying that like we go way over the line, but when you're with your buddies and you're talking shit, whatever, it's different. Everybody sort of changes a little bit different when they're in the public eye versus, around their family versus, talking to their friends, around their wives versus talking to their friends. And it just gets out of hand sometimes. But to screenshot that and show it to someone else without talking to the other person I don't give a fuck what your excuse is, man. It's no good.
Agree. Moving on back to some basketball stuff. So JJ Redick made some interesting comments that I wanted to touch on. He basically had said that he was lied to by the New Orleans front office and got into a whole rant about that. And these were his comments. I talked to Griff, who's the GM. I talked to Trajan Langdon. Griff basically says to me, come down for a month. If you still want to be traded, I give you my word, I'll get you in a situation that you like. We had 4 subsequent conversations. Reddick said on his podcast, again, my agent talked to him, but I'm talking to Griff directly. Griff and I had a personal relationship. Obviously, he did not honor his word. So JJ Redick didn't want to come into this season, didn't want to come in training camp. He wanted to be traded. And that's where the context of Griff's comment said, come in for a month. If you still hate it, we'll get you out. He followed that up by then saying, I don't think you're going to get honesty from that front office, just objectively speaking. That's not an opinion. I just don't think you're going to get that. I don't think what happened with me is necessarily an isolated incident either, but I do think across the league, front offices, they act in their best interest. I get that. I understand that. Truthfully, it's hard for me to admit this. I think I was a little naive to thinking because I was in year 15 and had attempted to do things the right way throughout my career and I honored my end of the bargain. But in terms of this front office, yeah, it's not something where I would expect certainly the agents that worked on this with me to ever trust that front office again. And then it's basically saying, I look at the buyout situation, I'm going to be bought out and go to the Brooklyn Nets, he said. I just wanted to be able to, on an off day, go to see my family and be within driving distance. So his family was, they're based in Philly, I think, or the Northeast somewhere. So his argument was trade me somewhere there, Boston, New York, Philly, Brooklyn, whatever, so he can commute to see his family. But this doesn't really pass a smell test for me. It's the NBA, man. Like, I don't think teams should be held a ransom to trade you where you want to go. I mean, that just doesn't work that way. If you want out, I mean, you've signed a deal for pretty big money. I don't know what the numbers are, 15, 16 a year, something like that. But if they want to send you to bloody, Toronto, you got to go to Toronto, and that's the way it is. But I think we're getting a little bit too far in the players' camp with situations like this, right?
Bogues, in the NBA, the team and the player, it's sort of a relationship before you get married, right? And the team's trying to do everything that's best for the team. And the player is trying to get the team's trying to maximize and use players as far as to try to maximize every ounce of talent that they have to take them to the highest level they can win-wise, or get off of them and trade them for the best asset that they can get in a trade. The player is trying to use the organization to try to make as much money as they can, give them as much security as they can, and put themselves and their family in the best position that they can. There's no innocent people in this. And it's not a bad thing. Like, they're both using each other, and they both know it, and they both should know it. And again, when you say it's a business, it's a business, you need to understand what that actually means. And look, there's some careers like Dirk Nowitzki's that can go 20 years in an organization, and everything ends pretty well. But 95% of these relationships with players and teams don't end well, especially when you get traded or released. It never ends well because, players don't want to admit that they're done or they can't carry that weight anymore. And teams get pissed at players because when they leave in free agency, that's the way it goes. And I think both parties got to understand that. I'm sure that conversation did go through. I'm sure Griff probably did talk to him and say, look, I'll get you in a good situation. But you can't get everything that you want. They traded him to Dallas. They got essentially a couple of players that they might be able to use. And they traded him to a team that could actually make some noise in the playoffs. And it's a stable organization that he'll get a chance to play because they need shooting around one of the best players to play in the game. In a warm weather state, I think he did have a house in Austin. I'm not sure if he still does. I'm not trying to speak for JJ Redick and what he should or shouldn't do, but the team owes him nothing. They could try to get him traded to a place that he wants, but they don't owe him that. And look, everybody wants to get traded to fucking Philly and Brooklyn, especially Brooklyn. And it's not that easy. And look, he's having probably one of the worst career years in his career. It's not easy. He's making $13 million a year. So it's not the easiest thing. Now, yeah, he might wanted to get bought out, and go to another team and go to Brooklyn and choose his destination. But the team, if they can get an asset back versus, cutting a guy and not getting that asset back, look, they lost ball. They need toughness. They got that in James Johnson. I'm not really a big Iwandu fan, but maybe some analytics guy might like him. Who knows? I don't know. But they might get something with that. But they traded him to a pretty good situation. He didn't go to a terrible situation that he's not going to make the playoffs or this and that. I mean, look, they could win a championship. You never know. So they did give him to a decent spot. It's not like they traded him to he didn't go to I don't know,
Detroit.
fucking Iraq or something. He went to Detroit, Iraq, same difference. But they didn't trade him to a situation like that. They traded him to a pretty good situation. Look, players don't own teams anything. And teams don't own players anything. Look, it's great. It's a great story. It's a great story to have. You play at one team your whole life. And if you want to get traded at the end of your career, the team goes, you know what? You won us 3 championships. Sure, we'll do that for you. It doesn't work that way in the NBA. They use you for every ounce of talent that you can give them. And you use them for every dollar that they can give you. In most situations, you'll leave to go to other teams and other situations for more money and a better, stable life. And teams will get off you quickly for a younger version of you if they can, unless they think that you could help them. And it's just sort of an open relationship like that. And I think it's an honest one because both parties should know what the other's trying to get. Teams trying to win a championship and stay viable and stay relevant. And the players trying to, get in situations where they're making the most money and playing the most minutes and helping a team win or helping their own brand or whatever you want to call it. And that's sort of what it is. So I don't really feel bad for JJ all that much because he's making $13 million. He's at a good situation. And yeah, he's away from family. But look, he's been doing this for a long time. He's been on 1-year deals. He made that $20 million deal when he was in Philly, I think. He did that a couple of years. I think he might have been in Brooklyn. I'm not sure. But he's been in places before that, that he's made good money. And, he's been he was the Clippers for a while, then Philly, then New Orleans. And they signed him to a 2-year deal.
He was in Milwaukee for a year. Yeah, he got traded there from the Clippers, I believe. Oh, no, before the Clippers.
Okay.
Before the Clippers, he was in Milwaukee for a season.
Oh, Orlando to Milwaukee. That's right. And then Clippers. You're right.
Yep.
Yeah. So he's been around and he's been a vigilante these last couple of contracts with the Philly and New Orleans deals. And look, he's made a lot of money. He's helped a lot of teams. And this one didn't go his way. And it is what it is. I understand why he feels the way he does. Hey, look. We're in the business of sort of telling it straight and sharing our experiences in the NBA. He does his podcast that does a good job doing the same thing. So I'm not going to be a hypocrite and say he shouldn't say it. Although, it just seems like it's a little bit sour grapes and it just didn't go his way. But that's the way he sees it. So what am I going to do? What are you going to do?
Let's be honest. It's my opinion is he wanted to join a championship team. He doesn't have a championship ring. That's the one thing he doesn't have on his resume. One of the best shooters of all time to play in the game. I think he saw an easy avenue to getting on that Brooklyn team, being a backup to Joe Harris. Can be a corner 3 guy for them, even if he doesn't play minutes. Closer to family, he gets a ring. Everyone's happy. I think that's where the bitterness has come from. I think he's, like you said, he's still going to a good situation in Dallas. He's gone to a situation where he might help them in a game 4 of a conference finals, possibly. Like I mentioned a couple of podcasts ago, Steve Kerr or Corey Brewer, that one game he had when Dallas won the championship in that lockout year.
Peja Stojakovic.
Yeah, exactly.
That Peja, when they picked up Peja.
100%. And he's broken down at this point. He's not a 30-minute guy, a 20-minute guy. He's not even a play every night guy. But I think the sour milk comes from he's missing out on that championship ring and the career is closing down. And that's me reading between the lines, if I was honest. That's what it's about. The family plays a big part. But, you signed in New Orleans. If the family was a big problem for you at that point, you know what the business is like. Don't sign in New Orleans. Take less money to stay out in the Northeast. If that was that important to you, you've made enough money. So I don't buy the whole solely to be with family. I think maybe there's a portion of it, but I think obviously getting a championship ring is a big thing for him.
Yeah, that's a little woe is me. Like I said, these relationships never end badly. if they didn't end badly, they wouldn't end. And that's the way it is. It's just, it's a little sour grapes at the end there. He wanted to sort of run his own destiny at the end, and he couldn't do it. But hey, look, the team doesn't owe him anything. He doesn't owe the team anything. If he would have left them in free agency to go somewhere else for more money or a better situation for him, both parties got to look out for themselves. And that's just the reality of the business. And, you just got to move on from it, man. But, it just seems like it was sour grapes, and I don't really feel bad all that much. But, what are you going to do, man? This is life.
Yeah, and you can't demand where you're going to be traded generally. I mean, comparing to the Australian Football League here, the AFL, you're like this, pro. So trades aren't as open market as the NBA. And the AFL has this, basically it's an outrageous rule where, say I'm a star player for Team X, I can say, hey, I want to be traded. I'm homesick in this city. I want to go closer to home. I nominate this club where I want to get traded to. And most teams will appease that, because what will happen is they won't want to trade. Another team's not going to want to come into the market and trade for you knowing you don't want to be there. You just want to go to club, XYZ. So then all the leverage for the team you're currently with goes out the window, because we have to trade you to the team you want to go to, and they usually do it. So that's how it is over here. And that's just an outrageous, it just basically limits your leverage. If I'm that team, knowing that a player wants to come and be traded to my team and they're not going to go anywhere else, I'm just going to give you the bare minimum. And then football clubs here are so worried about having a guy that doesn't want to be there around the culture of the club, they end up getting rid of him for nothing. And we see that here. And over here, it's a whole separate issue. It's just a bad protocol for them to have. I hate it. And I'm waiting for a team to be like, nah, we're trading you where we're going to get the best value, but they can't do it over here because that player will just not re-sign or whatever. So that's where I saw the JJ Redick comments. You're not going to get traded. Ever rarely you're going to get traded to somewhere where you're happy. That's just not the reality. We're in the NBA for, 5, 10, 15 years, some players. And like you said, it's a use me, use you relationship that you just got to get over. But I think it was just a bit harsh on the New Orleans front office. Like, he basically shat all over them as he exited, and I don't think that's really fair. I think they've got issues in New Orleans, don't get me wrong. Like Stan Van Gundy, I don't think it's the right coach for him. We've debated that at length. They need to make some changes there, but I don't think Griff is the problem based on what Redick has said.
Yeah, burning a bridge. Look, I'm a little guilty of burning bridges in the past. Like, if somebody really fucks you, yeah, like, okay, if you want to go at them hard and burn the bridge, that's fine. But this isn't really one of those things. I think with NBA teams that you should really go at them hard is if you're in the draft and they promise to draft you and they get you out, they get you either into the draft based on a promise, which has happened before, and the team reneges and don't draft you, or they just say they're going to draft you and they don't draft you. That's one. And the second thing is,
you stop working out with other teams. Yep.
Yeah, and shut it down. I've seen that before. And the second thing is in free agency, when they promise something and they're just putting you on hold to go after somebody else. That, I think, yeah, that's worth burning a bridge over. But saying that, hey, we're going to do everything we can to accommodate you, and they ended up trading you to a team that could be in the top 3 in the West come at the end of the year, and they're playing with one of the best players, to play in this game in a long time. I think that's not the worst situation. And they got they got one of the best medicals in the league. They got a great situation there. And I think that, trading there is not the worst thing in the world. And that's not a way you sort of burn a bridge. And you never know when you want a job in the league. And you don't know, like, you burn that bridge and you don't know what he's telling other people after that. Not that he'll do that, but it's not really worth it. It's just one of those things I think you just step back from, you take it and then you move on. But hey, look, I'm not him. He could feel the way he feels and react the way he wants. But, that's just sort of my take on it.
Fair enough. Russell Westbrook comments. Did you see those? They were pretty interesting. He basically was asked or criticized by Stephen A. Smith that he's not a championship winning player. He's not going to win a championship. He followed up with some comments that were pretty long-winded, but the crux of it was, I grew up on the streets. I'm a champion. I don't have to be an NBA champion. I know many people that got NBA championships that's miserable, have done nothing for their community, have done nothing for the people around the world. So I guess I'd follow this up with asking you the question, should a championship define players? 1 out of 30 teams a year get the chance to win a championship. Let's be honest, as we've said before, there's probably 4 or 5 real teams that are sort of real opportunities for a championship. The rest is just filling the numbers and rebuilding and whatever they're doing. And generally, most really good teams will repeat or be there for 2 or 3 years, a la Warriors, a la Lakers, Bulls. So the window for every 10 years is probably 5 to 6 teams that can win championships. And do you think it's fair to define, a player like Russell Westbrook, Chris Paul, those kind of guys based on a championship?
It's like the argument, Bogues, with who's the best player of all time. Everyone sort of weighs things differently, how they evaluate a player. Some people say Bill Russell's the best because he won 12 championships. And he's the best player on the team that won 12. And some people say, well, then they start comparing errors and all that stuff, and then they'll go over stats and they weigh certain things more than they weigh other things. I don't think that championships, I think maybe if you're trying to compare one player to another, it's really close, then maybe the championship thing gets into account. But I think you evaluate the player versus the player. But, that's just sort of how I see it. I think championships are sort of important, but look, you can be on a bad situation, bad organization. You could play in the same era as the Bulls. You could play in the same era as the 80s Lakers and Celtics. You can get caught in that, like a Clyde Drexler did, when he had to face Detroit and he had to face Chicago and Detroit. And it could be Charles Barkley. You could be Malone and Stockton. You could be a Chris Paul. And you could be a great player and you don't have it. You need a lot of luck on your side. You need a good organization. You need talent, and you need to stay injury free. And it's a hard thing, man. And I don't really hold them against them too much. But if you're comparing a player that won 0 championships versus a player that was the best player on a championship team for 3 championships or 2 championships, I think I'll probably steer towards the other player. But, Steve Nash is another thing. I think Steve Nash is the second best shooter of all time. I think that the guy is one of the best point guards of all time. He never won a championship, but he's still a great player, and you can't discount that. And, sometimes it's just, you don't have enough, and it's not, look, I think guys like Steve Nash, Barkley, Stockton, Malone, Paul, like those guys maximized and put everything on the floor, and they just didn't have enough. If, the Spurs and the Lakers weren't around, Nash probably would have won one. Especially with those Stoudemire teams and the teams when they were loaded with good talent, that shot makers and doing what they do, but it just doesn't happen. And, the same thing with, you throw in teams like that Oklahoma City team when they were all together. They just couldn't get by Miami, Dallas, Miami, what have you. They just couldn't get by guys like that. It's just, they just didn't have enough. Even that Rockets team that was loaded, like you thought that they might had enough at the sort of the top of their drive to it, but they just didn't have enough at the end of the day. And it's just, you run out of gas sometimes, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah, you bring up a valid team, actually. Like you look at the Spurs, and let's say you look at Tony Parker's career, and then you compare it to a Russell Westbrook. If you look at it numbers-wise, it's not even close, right? Westbrook's numbers are eye-popping. They're way better than Tony's. Tony didn't have massive numbers for the most part. Like, he had really consistent star numbers, but was never a Russell Westbrook equivalent for numbers. And some people would argue that, maybe Russell Westbrook's a better individual player, but Tony Parker gets the nod because he's got more rings. So it is a tough one. And sentiment has changed a lot lately. I think earlier on in the league, 90s, 2000s, it was all about how much you averaged. Oh, he just doesn't have the tools around him. He would win a championship if he was, on Team X. Whereas now it's changed. It's like, yeah, he's averaging 30, but he must be a cancer because he can't win a ring. Where, it's somewhere in between those two. It's not those extremes. And as we know, the NBA and pro sports in general, we tend to go to the extremes, but the sentiment has surprisingly changed, something I've observed. Whereas now, a knock on Durant was, well, you don't have a championship. So then he joins a team to win a championship, and now that's a knock because he joined a team to win a championship. So you kind of can't win.
No, they're always going to find something. Especially like that's what talk radio, that's what ESPN, with all those talk shows and stuff, that's what they live on. That's their lifeblood. That's why those guys make $10 million a year or $5 million a year, because they find content. And, I know he went at Stephen A. Smith and people went at Stephen A for what he said. Look, I think he was asked like, hey, you impressed with his triple-double or whatever he did that night, maybe like 35. I forgot the numbers, but like he said no. Or something like, no, he didn't win or what have you. And then like people get, a little sensitive and hot under the collar about it. Hey, look, like if you ask somebody their opinion and they're saying, well, some people all they do is look at stats. Look at our league now. It's there's full of people who just look at stats. And if you look at what he does statistically, first of all, the guy's one of the best competitors of all time. Like when Kobe tells me that him and Rondo are the top 2 competitors that he ever faced, I have to look at it as the guy's one of the best competitors I've ever seen. He's changed the game as point guard. He's probably one of the most athletic point guards, if not the most athletic point guard. He changed the position, as far as how it's played. He's done a lot for the game. He's done a lot for that position. The guy's just a steam train, and he goes at you hard as fuck. He'll give you 48 minutes of whatever he can give you. Before he put up those huge numbers, and he had impact on winning, and he got close several times. And now, he's sort of plateauing a little bit. He's hurt. He's banged up a little bit throughout the years, and he can't give you what he used to give you. But I mean, the guy's a hell of an impressive player. I mean, just looking at at what he does. I mean, the guy puts out points. He's assists. He comes at you. He's athletic. He can post up. He does all these things, and I salute him. But, I just don't think that going at somebody for thinking a certain way when asked a question. But again, then like I always say, I never tell a guy how to feel. If that's what he feels like, that's fine. Players are super sort of like combative when people are sort of going at them in the press or whatnot. And that's another thing, Bogues, that we should talk about. You saw Michael Porter Jr. go at Scalabrine the other night?
Yeah, I did. Didn't he call him Rappaport light or something?
Well, yeah, like, Scal said something like, and again, this is what social media, he's like, Michael Porter Jr. is a player that will get you fired.
Get your coach fired, yeah. He said that last playoffs or the playoffs before. It was a while ago.
Yeah, and and what it's going to open up, it's sort of like the kid, the running back from the funny running back from Seattle, how he didn't answer the media. Remember he didn't answer the media that whole year, that Super Bowl year, whatever.
Oh yeah.
I forgot the guy's name, but he's funny as fuck, great player. And then like Westbrook stuff.
I'm just here so I won't get fined.
Yeah, and then he started like other people started doing it, and then it's just a copycat deal. And now, when people are attacking media people, now you're going to see it trickle down. And look, and that's what social media people don't understand why it's a little fucked up. Well, it's a lot fucked up, but like it opens up a lot of avenues. This isn't just like some like Howard Cosell fucking interviews you and that's it, and it ends like that, and you read things in the newspaper. Things are in real time, and people are all accessible. So now I think you're gonna start seeing these players go at these media people a lot more. I know it's been happening, but I think you're going to see it a lot more. But the whole Westbrook thing, hey, look, the guy's a hell of a player. He might, he's not going to win a championship in Washington. He's getting up there in age. It might not happen for him unless there's a buyout situation. But hey, look, the guy's had a hell of a fucking career, and he's one of few that left everything on the floor. And the guy competes. You might like him, you might not like him, but the guy competes his fucking ass off, and I respect him for that. And I respect for what he's done changing the position. You could say he's a winner, you could say he's not a winner, and he's not a championship player. That you're entitled to that opinion. But you can't say that guy doesn't fucking compete every night. That's one thing I think he could hang his hat on. He's done it. And he's a hard-nosed dude, plays hurt, and he goes at you, and he never quits.
And factor this in, he's 24 triple-doubles away from the all-time leader. Oscar Robertson has 181 triple-doubles all-time. Westbrook's currently at 157, and then you got Magic Johnson at 138. So regardless of what you think of him and how he plays, he's going to go down as holding one of the most impressive stat lines to get in basketball and be the all-time leader of it. I'm putting me up there as one of the greats to play our game regardless of championships. Moving on, we have seen some buyouts happen, and what's come from that now is a debate around small market teams complaining a star player gets bought out. We don't have an opportunity to get him. It's not fair, blah, blah, blah. Some numbers from the past 15 seasons. There's been 39 buyout players. Those 39 buyout players, 20 of them signed in the top 15 markets. The other 19 signed everywhere else. So that basically tells you there is some parity. Those 39 buyout players averaged 2 games and just 10 minutes a game in the playoffs. So I don't think they're moving the needle as much as people think. We see the Lakers with Drummond. Obviously, he's a huge acquisition for them. I think he'll play more than 2 games and 10 minutes in the playoffs. But do you think this is just spilt milk? And if it is, what's the fix?
Bogues, the buyout guys, and people got to understand that they're buyout guys for a reason. If they were really helping their team, they would still be with that team for the most part. And these guys are bought out because either their contract doesn't fit and the team has to either stretch them out or get them off the books, or they just can't cut it anymore and they're at the back end of a really bad contract for the team. And, they're not really helping the team. If they were really helping the team and propelling the team to win, they'd probably still be with the team. And most of these guys, it's sort of like when you sign like these football teams or what have you, or baseball teams that sign Hall of Famers when they're like 41 years old and they can't help you anymore, but they're Hall of Famers. And I think that when people are signing these players, sometimes you think of the player when they were back in their prime, like, oh, wow, they got this player or they got that player. And I think that they don't understand that many of these players don't really have a huge impact on winning when, especially halfway through the season or 3/4 through the season, getting picked up. I remember we picked Amari Stoudemire up and we picked up David Lee. And, Amari was nice. He's a good player, but, he helped us okay. We gave up a young player in Ricky Lido and cut him, who I thought had a chance to be a Terrence Ross type player. And sometimes you make decisions like that because you want to make runs to the playoffs. But sometimes those things, more times than not, those things don't work out. As far as the complaining with the teams, look, that's life. That's life. That's how the league's been forever. It's how it is in free agency. It's how it is, in buyout situations. That's how it is. Players want to play for good teams that have a chance to win. I don't care if it's a big market, small market. You want to complain all the fuck you want. Do your fucking job better. Get your fucking team better. And that's the situation. That's always going to be the situation. Get your team in position to win. Worry about player development. Worry about evaluating talent. Get your team better. And that's always how it's going to be. Now, I'll tell you what the league did do a good job of getting rid of a rule. Forget the buyout. The buyout is what it is. This thing's been collectively bargained, by the way. If they really had a problem with it, they should have taken it out of their last CBA. The big rule that you probably knew about, when you could trade a player, the player can get bought out from the team that they play, that you trade them to. So that team buys them out. They wait like a 21-day period, and then they come back to you. They used to do that all the time. And that was the biggest bullshit I've ever seen. And I'm glad that they got rid of that rule. The buyout thing, it doesn't really get me upset. I don't care if I'm a big market, small market. It just is what it is. That rule is one of the most outrageous things I've ever seen. It happened 4 or 5 times.
You got to wait a season now, don't you?
It used to be 21 days. And now I think it's a year. You got to wait a calendar year.
You know what's funny about that? There's a workaround though. It happened to me. So when I got traded from Golden State to Dallas, I was in that situation. So then I moved on from Dallas. They were going to buy me out, but then they ended up finding a trade to get something back. Nerlens Noel. So traded me to Philly. I got bought out by Philly. I could then legally still sign with Golden State. But they were obviously loaded with bigs at that point because they had Zaza and JaVale. But because I'd gone to a second team, that was the workaround. It then allowed me, that rule was then nixed because it wasn't the last team I was with. Does that make sense? So if Dallas if Dallas had bought me out, I couldn't sign with Golden State because of that rule. Because they traded me to another team, they bought me out. I then technically could have, and there was a bit of buzz around it, but they were stacked. David West, Zaza, JaVale, I wouldn't have fit in there and got minutes, and it wouldn't have made sense. They needed a guard at that point anyway. But there is a workaround, and teams will always figure it out. But I like that. I like the rule because I think it is kind of hilarious that you could have back in the day just been like, hey man, we're gonna trade you and get you bought out and then come back.
I want to say it was Gary Payton, when I was at Boston, that we did that too. The two rules that I think were the coolest rules ever was the rule that you could trade a guy, already say that, hey, look, we're trading you to Atlanta, but Atlanta, you just have to say that, you're not gonna report. They're gonna buy you out. Because they usually were the throw-in. They probably did it for player X and then 2 second rounders or some young player they really wanted. They didn't really want them, so they can come back. The second thing that I thought was fucking hilarious is they allowed players that didn't retire yet, that was on your sheet, to make the money work. We were trying to trade for Baron Davis when I was in Boston. And we were trying to put him with Paul Pierce. This is before they got Garnett and those guys. And I remember Barron was either in New Orleans or Charlotte, I forgot what, and he wanted out. And we had Rashawn McLeod, who played St. John's and Duke, played in the NBA for a while. We had him on our sheet. He was retired, but not officially retired. We were going to get, because we were short on the money, because you have to come within 25% of the the money has to, both teams has to take and receive up to 25% close, in closeness as far as the deals. So we were going to sign Rashawn McLeod, give him $4 or $5 million just to be active in this trade. He would never play for the team. He would just make the money work and give him this money. I think Sean Bradley did that in the Jason Kidd trade, where he had I think Dallas traded him to New Jersey. He technically had to work out for a month before he retired again. And he basically showed up at 8 a.m. and did fucking mic and drill for 20 minutes and then left. But they were allowed you to do that if you weren't officially retired and that was the last team you played for, and they could actively give you money to make a trade work, send you to the team. You never really play, practice, anything, and you basically get a free payday. So I thought that was a pretty interesting rule.
Happened to a former teammate of mine, Luke Ridnow. I don't know if you remember, but back in, I think it was 2015, he got traded 4 times in the span of 6 days. And after the first one, he was calling the teams. The agent was just basically saying hey, I'm going to retire. I'm not going to play again. And they were like, oh, that's cool. And he ends up retiring. So this all went down June 2015, early to mid-June. He gets traded 6 times. And then on June the 22nd, he announced his retirement. So yeah, it does happen. You're right. And he was one of the extreme cases. But yeah, teams will do that. They'll do whatever they can and make salaries match sometimes. They'll throw in guys that they've drafted, 10 years ago sometimes into deals to try and make things work and just get a heartbeat in that trade. And that's just a part of as we said, that's the business, and that's just the shit show you got to deal with.
What do you think about buyouts though? What do you think? What's your thoughts?
I've been part of them. Look, I'm not a huge fan. The irony of the small markets, by the way, complaining about buyouts is, where do most of the buyout guys come from? Fucking small markets. So it's just most of the time,
yeah,
you ever really see, the Knicks or the Lakers buying a guy out, because guys will still want to at least be in the city if their team sucks, right? And have a good time, good weather, whatever. I get the buyout thing. If you're going young, OKC, Al Horford, we're not going to play you anyway. See you later. Mm-hmm. I get it if the guy's being a dickhead. That makes sense to me. But if he's a good guy in your locker room and not causing any issues and just trying to be professional, I don't think it's that good. I think it's just bad from an optics point of view. But if the guy's being poisonous and get me out of here, I'm going to do whatever I can to get out of here, you're going to hate me, okay, you're kind of stuck. You either try to trade him, deadline passes, and you buy him out. But yeah, I'm not a huge fan of it. I'm more hey, I signed this contract. It's for whatever terms. I'm going to do my best for those terms, and then beyond that, we can figure it out. If I do want to get traded during that contract, I'll ask, and if I don't, I still have to be professional. And it goes on our conversation last week. You can ask for a trade request in private, do all those things. They can say no, and then you got to respect that and still go and earn your living. It's the same as working at an office and wanting to join a rival office, and then you've still got your 6 weeks notice. You still want to try and finish on the right terms. I mean, most people kind of wouldn't, or they'd kind of just gas it. But yeah, I'm more of, if I sign that, I'm going to try to do it the best I can, even though I'm pissed off at the situation and want to get out of there. You still got to treat it professionally, and like you said, you're still getting those zeros in your bank account, so you got to handle it the right way. But we'll move on to Kelly Oubre. So this is an interesting one, only because I got some word from behind the scenes there. He was basically asked after the trade deadline. He was rumored to be traded from every NBA team to China to Australia. He was rumored in everything. He was all over the place. And having a good authority, they had an offer actually for Lonzo Ball, and I think a throw-in and a pick for Oubre, and the Warriors turned it down, funnily enough. But I thought that was a pretty good deal to shed some salary and get a pick back. But anyway, he was asked if he'd come back next season with the Warriors. He basically was pretty nonchalant. I can't predict the future, only God can, all that kind of stuff. And then they followed up saying, would you be happy coming back next season? If Clay's healthy, would you come back to a bench role? And the conversation kind of turned. It was clear, his tone, the way he was talking, was not very positive to coming off the bench, and said something along the way of, I'm more than a bench player, I wouldn't come off the bench. Now, I'm not going to name the player, but I've heard the Warriors players didn't take too lightly to those comments. They basically had made it pretty known that Andre Iguodala, a finals MVP, was okay with coming off a bench, but we have Kelly motherfucking Oubre who won't. And that was not directed behind his back. That was to his face by an unnamed player in that locker room who was not too happy with those comments. But it was pretty interesting just because that's a group that still has NBA champions on it. So as a young fella like Oubre, I like the confidence. You have to kind of be your own fan, but I think that locker room is the wrong environment to make those kind of comments. What do you think?
The competitor in you, as far as a player, of course you're not going to be exactly happy about it. And, you have to be sort of cliche-ish. I know everybody likes the truth, especially us, but, with that stuff, people can get sensitive, especially in a situation where they've won championships, in the past, and have respect for the people that are there. Just saying, hey, look, whatever you need, even if you don't think it. Look, how many times have we seen players do that where they just give you a bullshit, yeah, I'll do whatever it takes. And in the back of their head, they're like, fuck no, I'm not going to do whatever I take. I'm out of here. And that's sort of what I'm seeing with this. He should have probably just took a knee on it and said, all right, you're right. I'll do whatever is needed, man. I just love it here. Just sort of say what you need to say. Cause players could get, once you fuck that locker room up and they start looking at you sideways, you're not really with us. Especially they've had success in the past, huge success. It's not a great thing, and it could fuck you up with the team. And look, he's trying to find his footing. He's 25 years old. He was at an okay situation in Washington. Then he goes to Phoenix, and now he's here. And he could be working on his fourth team already in his young career, and he's got to stick at some point. Now he's okay. He averages 12 a game for his career. He's an okay player. He could get hot once in a while. He's not consistent. He's wild. But I think with comments like that, plus being wild, it's not really going to help you too much to find your footing and trying to sort of put some real career years into a team. You're probably going to be looking for a new situation. It's just not really a cool deal, but hey, look, everybody's got to sort of learn themselves, man.
Well, you factor that in with not being the most unselfish player on the floor.
Oh, shit.
He's never averaged over 1.5 assists in his career in any season, and he's not essentially a Tony Snell where he's catch and shoot. He's a guy that usually on most teams, even with the Warriors, his usage is pretty high, and that's a pretty alarming statistic. I think that would be known in that locker room too. This dude's not going to pass it. So if we give it up to him, he's not really a swing guy. He's not really a guy that's going to find the open man. Last season, 14.8 field goal attempts for 1.5 assists. That's pretty alarming as well. So I think he has some selfishness in his game. He is young. He needs to work it out. I do like him though. I think he's got all the tools to be a really good player, but I think a lot of it's just going to be that mental makeup of can you accept the role? If you're now a team that was looking at Kelly Oubre to bring you into a championship mix, let's think, okay, Lakers, KCP goes, they don't sign Schroeder. They've got $10 to $12 million in cap space, $15 million, whatever. And he's on their list, and you see those comments and you're like, okay, so we can't bring him off the bench if that's what we decide to do as our sixth man punch. You've basically alienated some teams that were probably interested in you. And I like the honesty, but at the same time, I think if I was Oubre and had an opportunity to be on a championship winning team with Clay healthy and a team that could push for the conference finals potentially in a year or two, I would embrace that Iguodala role for a year or two. Take my lumps minutes-wise. I mean, Andre still played 30 minutes a game for us and got a Finals MVP, and look what he's earning right now from Miami based on that. Like he signed a really big deal there. So you can still have a lot of positives from it, but that's just kind of the way the league's going, and I guess can't argue too much of him being his biggest fan.
Yeah, if I was talking to him, if he was on a team I was with, and I was in his ear, I'd say, look, man, you got to study Jordan Clarkson, you got to study Lou Williams, how they make impacts off the bench, how they get starters minutes, but they play off the bench, and they really have a huge impact in winning. And that's what you have to be, and then like what you do is you help them win, help Golden State win, because that's why they got you there. That's the only reason why they brought him in. I don't think they should have brought him in. I think they should have lost this year and lost big, got their pick, got Minnesota's pick either this year or next year. And then once Clay comes back, roll with it. But they thought, look, we're not doing this. We got this new arena. We got to show people we're still in it. So we need to get this kid. And they identified him as a kid that Oubre as someone who could help them. So they got him in to play that role, to put up points, to do what he does. And that's what he did. So he's got to show that he could have an impact on winning, maybe get them to the play-in round, maybe win the play-in round, who knows? And then show people that he could really elevate his game and then get paid on his next situation, or get traded in the next situation, who knows? But taking it this way really doesn't help his situation, in my opinion.
Yeah, and my point will be not in that locker room, not with those guys. Maybe on a team like Washington or some of the previous teams he's been on, a Phoenix maybe last season. But that's not the right locker room to do that. They've got some guys that'll call you out on your bullshit, and they have. But one last thing, NBA-wise, we spoke about bad flights about 5-6 podcasts ago about our worst experiences flying. So the Utah Jazz, for those that aren't familiar, their plane almost went down completely. They, I spoke to Joe Ingles about it briefly, and they flew into a mass flock of birds, in the hundreds probably, and it basically screwed one of their engines up. It made a loud bang. People reported to see fire coming out of the engine immediately, and they plummeted. They banked on one side because obviously the power ratio was all messed up from the engines. And Joe told me that they were on above Salt Lake at the time, big lake obviously in Utah. And at one point, the pilot had mentioned that they might have to brace to land on the water. So, I texted him straight away and asked how he was. And he said he was pretty shaken up. He said a lot of guys were shaken up. There was a lot of guys kind of essentially bracing for impact. They were told to fasten their seatbelts, get to brace positions and all that kind of stuff. And pretty scary time, but great news that everything landed well. And it's a testament to how good pilots are these days and all the training they do. To land a plane on one engine of that size is pretty impressive. And they got it to safe ground, and obviously there's some ramifications now. There's Donovan Mitchell, I think it was, that didn't want to fly the next night, and rightfully so, man. I mean, I'd be very, very scared getting on a plane the next day after that. I'd probably need a week or so to kind of get my shit together mentally after thinking that was going to be the last time, you take a breath on this earth. But thankfully everything's well for them. It finished on a positive note, but scary times, and you got to remember what professional athletes at times go through. Their risk is heightened just with the amount of flights they're taking on a daily basis, right?
Yeah, you never know, man. You never know. You just take these routine flights that you think that are, pretty easy, and bang, something like that could happen. It's such a, such a scary thing to even think about. And, so many teams traveling on a daily basis, and, and through all pro sports. And it's just you're sitting there, you're getting your drink, and you're just sort of chilling, and all of a sudden something like that happens. Yeah, it's a rough deal, man. I couldn't even imagine what they were going through in that little time. That's some scary shit.
Yeah, it is. And that, like I've said, I mean, I've been through 2 of those, and they've basically scarred me for life. Like I said, I get the slightest bit of turbulence, I'm tightening that belt and looking for the stewardess or the flight attendants, looking at their face. Because you can usually tell a lot by the facial expressions they make once they get off that phone from the pilot. So, yeah, hopefully everything goes well for them the rest of the season. But impressive effort by that pilot to land it. We'll finish on some NBL real quick. There was some, I don't know if you saw it, but we mentioned the Mitch Creek thing a couple of weeks ago. He got stood down. There's an assault allegation pending on him. The court date has been pushed now. I think it's April or May, so it would have been after the season. So an interesting decision by the NBL, Southeast Melbourne Phoenix. We can't really get an answer on whose decision it was exactly, but he's been granted to play again. He played last week, his first game back. He was away from the team for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. It's caused an uproar over here. Obviously, it was during the week, International Women's Day, I believe, or the week after, so that wasn't a good look. He played his first game in Illawarra, was booed every time he touched the ball. I've got mixed feelings on this. I was an innocent till proven guilty in the court of law on all aspects, but the more I look at this, I think it's probably hurt both parties, and obviously the woman involved. With that, goes without saying that, if it's proven to be, her allegations are proven, then it's horrendous what's happened. But it doesn't look good for the NBL. It doesn't look good for Mitch Creek. It doesn't look good for Southeast Melbourne Phoenix, because they've basically reneged on their own decision. That's got people fired up, and then now people are saying that you've got a potential abuser playing professional sports. So, I mean, it's a tough one for me. Like I said, I believe in innocent till proven guilty, because there can be instances where people make false allegations. Just for your point of view, Pro, the NRL, which is the rugby league up in Sydney, they have a stand down policy if charged, which, a lot of those football players were getting in insane amounts of trouble. Every week there was someone doing something stupid. There was, group sex issues. There was, whatever it was, violence at bars, getting in fights, physical assault, punching people. So they put in a stand down policy. Basically, as soon as you have a charge pending, you're stood down from playing and training. You're paid along that time to your court date, and then it takes the optics out of the media and people saying that you shouldn't be playing because you're a potential abuser, whatever, right? I think this is a similar situation. I believe Mitch was paid. I'm not too positive, but I assume he'd be paid not to play, but it just goes back to the optics of it. I think it's just bad that they've gone against their own decision, and it's been a pretty big point of debate here for the NBL. But I mean, how do you see this all? Are you an innocent till proven guilty guy? Are you a guy that says, okay, no, it's fair enough to stand a guy down until their court date? And then on the other side, what happens? Devil's advocate, if Mitch is proven innocent and he's now tarred, with this feather.
The big thing here is going against whatever you decided to do. If you're going to go against, it doesn't make you look good. It makes you look indecisive. Whatever you do to deal with this, you have to be decisive with it. You have to make your decision, and going forward, you have to follow it. The only problem that I have with it, and it's a despicable thing if it happened, I have very little to no sympathy for anybody who's sort of involved in this, involved if they're guilty. And I am an innocent until proven guilty guy. The problem with it, though, Bogues, is this. What if it is a false allegation? And maybe not this allegation, but maybe some other allegation for another player. So it sets a standard if you're going to not play a player based on any allegation, then any allegation could come up, and then they have to sit out until it's
charged
probably
allegation. Though here has to be you have to be formally charged by the police. Yep.
Yeah. So if you're formally charged, but say it's a false allegation in the sense that it didn't happen, and then you got to sit, and if that's the deal, there's no decent way to deal with this. Now, the moral thing would be he's not playing, but it opens up a Pandora's box of if I'm a rabid fan and I'm whatever, I could set situations up.
Or you're a sports bettor, yeah. Or you bet on games.
That's the problem I have. But look, the moral thing of it, Bogues, if it happens, I'd fucking ban them. I'd ban them for life if it happened. That's the thing. You can't. No one knows because the court case isn't there yet. They're letting him play, which probably isn't the best thing ever to do. I would probably not play him. If you want to pay him, that's up to you. But I probably wouldn't play him because it just puts everybody in a bad spot. Puts him in a bad spot. It puts the organization in a bad spot. It embarrasses the person who has the allegation against him. Where look, this guy might have done this and he's still playing, and is so it's probably best for everybody that doesn't play, but it's not an easy situation. It's not an easy thing to just say, all right, this is the right thing, because there's a lot of other things to talk about with it. But whatever you come up with, if you're going against what you came up with originally, it doesn't make you look good.
Yeah, and I don't know why that happened. There's people that have rumored maybe there isn't a case and the NBL know it. Who knows? Once again, we're not condoning any of the actions. We want, your thoughts obviously go out to the female involved if what's alleged happened is absolutely putrid. So you don't want to muddy the waters by people saying, oh, you're condoning this by blah, blah, blah. No, we're not. We're discussing this as most people should. I think the right decision is probably the first decision that you make. You can't go against your own kind of ruling. And as harsh as it is, I think standing down with pay, that could potentially be that something the NBL might need to introduce. But like you said, there's also the flip side. If he now goes to court, he's going to miss the Olympics regardless of the decision, right? So if he's innocent, he's going to miss the Olympics most likely because he's going to miss the lead up and the camps and all that kind of stuff, right? Which most people say, if he's done what's alleged, it's unlucky. I'm like 100% agree with you, right? But devil's advocate is, okay, if he's at the end of this court case is proven innocent, he's still tarred with that label for most people, and we all know how it goes. It's gonna be a smaller article, and he got off, and he's not guilty, and whatever. So then there's that argument of now, can he, for being stood down, can he now go after the NBL or a club? And I think when the NBL's got themselves in trouble, I don't believe they have a physical protocol guideline outline for these circumstances. That could hurt them, and I think maybe that's played a part into why the NBL has said, you know what, we're going to let you play. But they've also noted that he won't be doing any community events. He won't be doing any of that stuff. So it's just game training and that's it. Yeah. But I think maybe the NBL, I'm just on a hunch that maybe his lawyers reached out to the NBL and said, can we have the document that pertains to how you guys handle this, similar to the rugby league, the stand down? Can we have your policy? And I think potentially the NBL have probably gone, oh shit, we don't have one. Well, there's potential here for us to come back at you guys if he's not guilty. And I think they've probably just gone, whoops, we don't want to be involved with that. And like you said, morally, not the right decision, but I think it's come down to money and what could be. And I think that's why I've made a decision. But like I said, Pro and I aren't condoning anything that's happened. We don't know. We don't know what's happened. So for any of you idiots out there that are going to either grab a clip of this and say we don't. We're strongly against any kinds of violence, as Pro said with the KD, DMs, any threats of violence, assault, sexual assault, treating women badly, treating men badly, just treating human beings badly. Rogue Bogues is on record to say treating human beings badly is a bad thing. We're against it, strongly against it. But there is going to be some interesting times the next couple of months with that. But I thought it was interesting, and Mitch, like I said, they have their first home game, so it'll be interesting to see if the home fans boo him. So I'll be interested to see how all that goes, because it's not good right now, man, and it's. Whether you agree with innocent or proven guilty, whether you disagree with it, whatever, having him out on the court right now, watching a game on TV and having him blatantly booed every time he touches the ball, don't get me wrong, we're not feeling bad for Mitch here if he's done what he has done, but for an average fan tuning in, it's not a good look neither. And like you said, to renege on your initial decision is not great, in my opinion, with the NBL.
Yeah, and as a league itself, you got to take after some of these other leagues that have these huge operational manuals as far as the league's concerned and bylaws. And you have to dot every I, you got to cross every T, and you have to have every situation, collectively bargained and written down on paper. So when things come up, you can deal with them swiftly. You could have a position of power on this, and you could sort of have the perception of being on top of these things. But now when you're backtracking, you don't really, if it is true, they don't really have bylaws for this. It just makes you look weak, unorganized, and just bad from the top down. And then that could just sort of snowball. You want to be ahead of these things and know how to deal with them, come from a position of strength and show them that you're in charge of things. And instead of in Bottom and Bailey's fucking circus when you don't really know and you don't have, and you're going against things and, you don't act swiftly on these things. It just makes you look bad.
And as I've said earlier, you got to have some organizational structure in your league, the NBL. So this is one of those opportunities for you to fix this in the off season and put together some sort of protocol, some guidelines, some structures so these things can be handled better. And I've been a big advocate for that in previous podcasts. Run us through your fact or fake news, Pro.
All right. First off, fact or fake news, does Paul Pierce buy an Instagram for Dummies book in the next 24 hours from now?
Oh boy. If one existed, it would be fact. And on top of that, you'd highly recommend a masterclass on it, a YouTube video tutorial, an ABC how to do. Fact.
I say fake news. I say his agent, former agent, or marketing director will be getting the book for him and will be sort of outlining the important parts of it and probably erasing it from his phone. So that's what probably I would think on that.
A picture book, of course.
I would say audible.com. I'm going to cut it in the middle. I'm going to give it audible.com. So okay. That's it.
We'll look out for that.
Bogues, we talked about Tony Snell shooting 57 from 3. Will he finish the season over 50% from the 3-point line?
Oh, man, I need to do my numbers. I'm not great at analytics and stats. I need to call. Should have got Harel Labos Vulgaris on the pod for this because I'm trying to figure out what he needs to go for the next whatever.
He wants 8 Bitcoin. I think it's a little pricey for us right now. I don't think we're operating on our budget.
That's my guy, the Bitcoin guru, but I'll have to figure out, so you'd have to figure out how many, let's say 30 games left, what percentage would he need to shoot to get under 50? I assume it'd be in the 40s somewhere. I think he'll finish above 50. I think he's, fact, he'll finish above 50%. He takes good shots, like we said, and he doesn't take a lot of bad ones, so I'll go fact.
I'm picturing the scene from Hangover where the dude with the beard with the satchel is all the when he's trying to go down like Rain Man and all the stats and stuff are going around him, like the scene from A Beautiful Mind.
Oh yeah, in the casino. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm picturing you doing that while you're trying to figure this out.
Oh, it's much worse than that. Much worse than that. I'm bad at maths.
I would say he will. Based on I'm saying it's fact. Based on how many he shoots. And how he shoots them, I figure he's going to finish over 50% from the 3. I'll say it's fact.
Beautiful.
Hopefully we don't have to agree on all 3 here. All right, last one. NBA will dramatically change buyout protocol to even the playing field for big and small market teams by the next collective bargaining agreement.
Fake news, because I don't know what are you going to change. Like can be a restriction of trade to an extent. As I said earlier, if you've got a guy being a dickhead in the locker room, you got to move him on. What do? Just tell him to stay home. So I think fake news. I don't think it's that big of a deal. Those numbers that I mentioned earlier, past 15 seasons, 39 buyout players, averaged 2 games and just 10 minutes in the playoffs, and then 20 of them signed top 15. The other 19 signed elsewhere. I think it's pretty okay in my opinion. I don't think it's moving the needle. So fake news.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's fake news. I don't think I don't think it's a big enough deal for them. It doesn't really impact too many people except those, the people who lose out on players that are going to complain. As long as LeBron James or one of those power brokers really, complains about it, I don't think anyone, a power broker team or one of your big markets, I don't think they're going to really care about it. So I think it's fine the way it is. I just think you're always going to have people argue and complain about things when things don't go their way. So yeah, I say it's fake news. I don't think it's going to happen.
I think your Chihuahua agrees as well.
Yeah, it sucks. It's pretty shitty fucking fact of fake news. I might fire myself and hire the person who complained about me swearing. Maybe they could come up with a fucking list.
No, your Chihuahua's barking. I thought your dog in the background. I thought they agreed with the fake news. That's
actually my son. Yeah, that's actually my son. Maybe he'll come up with them next time.
Okay. Q&As, we're going to plow through these real quick. First one, AB and Pro, my partner and I bought tickets when you were in LA, and you were traded 4 days before the game, which bummed us out, but we were lucky to see you play in Adelaide for the Kings, so thanks for coming back. My question for both of you is, when being traded, do you start to lose confidence in what you do, or do you just move on and continue to play your game? Plus, do you believe if you had not broke your leg at the Cavs, you guys could have had a real chance to win the title? First off, no on your last question. I was not moving the needle for the Cavs, even if I was healthy. I was at best probably 5 to 10 minutes a night for them with what they were trying to do. And in the series against Golden State specifically, I wouldn't have really played much minutes because they went small a lot. So to answer your question about that, no, the Golden State Warriors still would have won that championship. As far as losing confidence because you were traded, I assume that's what you're asking. Look, there's 2 ways to look at a trade. One is, the team that you have doesn't want you. The team that you have sucks, so they're trying to shed salary. The team that you have, in my case, had to make room for Kevin Durant, so I couldn't be too pissed off about that because I'm not an idiot, and I would have traded myself have a chance to get Kevin Durant, if that makes sense. And then you can look at it on the other side. Someone else wants me. Another team is making a move for me. Another team has gave up some of their players for me. So look, there can be a bit of a confidence issue if you've been bounced like 4 or 5 times in a few years. It can kind of get, not even from a confidence point of view, just moving houses, you got a wife and kids, it just takes a toll mentally, and that can hurt your confidence a little bit. The other thing is, as pros mentioned, moving into a team mid-season is sometimes detrimental to fitting in and playing your role, because you got to learn a new system. You might not be in favor with the coach, whatever it is. So it can be good, it can be bad. It's just some shit you got to deal with in the NBA. It's part of what we sign up for. It's a part of why we're paid a lot of money, is that you can be traded and be told, hey Bogut, you got to be from Dallas to Cleveland in 48 hours or you're getting fined. Get on a plane and we'll see you in a couple of days, and then get ready to play in 3 days. And that's just the reality of the business, right, bro?
Yeah, I think that you have to figure out really early what kind of pro you're going to be. And I think it really depends on how you're wired. If you're wired like it doesn't bother, things don't bother you, you're going to stay tunnel vision, you're going to stay focused on things. I mean, there's always going to be life things like kids and wife or a girlfriend or family that you have to move. Yeah, you have to deal with that. That is what it is. You have no idea how sort of sensitive players are sometimes when trades come up. You think that people are like really strong and tough, and and then they get traded, and it's sort of like it hits them like a truck, because for a lot of these players, they've never dealt with adversity before. So it's one of those things where you have it's going to come get you at some point. You're going to get traded or waived at some point, or you're going to leave a team. So you have to always deal with it. If you do get traded, you have to just, again, stay in your routine, stay with what got you there as far as your daily training regimen, your daily regimens, and you got to stay with what got you there. You got to understand why you're good in this league, and you got to continue to do that regardless if you get traded once, 20 times, 0 times. But some people just aren't wired for it. You think because the deck's been stacked in their favor their whole career, once they deal with one trade, it could ruin a career. If you're not tough, and look, everybody's tough when they're on Instagram and they're in layup lines or they're tweeting shit out during the summer. But when all that shit's gone, you got to look yourself in the mirror. You know how tough you are or how not tough you are. You'll be surprised with some of the people that you think are really tough in this league that aren't really tough at all once they get hit with adversity for the first time. So it's just how you're wired, and you got to stay just like anything else. If I was, especially in times like now where, people losing jobs and things, you got to stay focused on what's important. And the same thing as an NBA player, you got to stay focused on what got you there. Continue to do that. It doesn't matter if it's in Golden State, Minnesota, Detroit, Boston, Dallas, Denver, whatever. You got to continue to do what you do, what got you there. But yeah, it could definitely impact people because they can't take adversity. They've never dealt with it before. They were high school All-American, college All-American, lottery pick. Everything's going their way. They never had a challenge for minutes in their or shots in their life. Everything was run to them, and then they get to the league, and it's a completely different story, and they can't deal with it. So it definitely challenges people, But if you really want to be good at this, you got to focus. You can't really worry about that. It's out of your control. The team's either going to trade you or they're not going to trade you. And it will come get you at some point. Like I said, there's probably 95% of the players in that league don't stay with, one organization more than six or 7 years. They're moving at some point. So you just got to deal with it and move on.
Especially these days, yeah, you're moving a lot. So thank you, Matthew Halambi from Adelaide. Next one. Hey, mate, one for you and Pro. With both of you being parents, it's hard to watch the kids play basketball, if they play ball, that is, to stop yourselves from trying to run through X's and O's during or after games, seeing how both of you have well above average basketball minds. Or are you able to take a step back and just let them run around and play like delinquents? Keep up the good work. Still waiting for the go-ahead work for your Bo Morris joint, Bogues, for the electrical work. He's obviously an electrician. So, yeah, if I get the permit to build a house ever, we'll see how we go. And that's Andrew and Officer. I'll go this one first. I mean, look, it depends what age your kids are. You don't mention what age they are. I think at a young age, you let them be delinquents. I think there's enough structure in life throughout, teenage years and school and then post-teenage years and adolescence that I think letting kids be kids at an early age is very important. So don't helicopter them. I think you can give them some guidelines and some techniques. For instance, if they're shooting, just keep your elbow in, focus on that, but don't go out there trying to be Phil Jackson with kids that are under 10 years old, in my opinion. I think, once they start getting more towards structured stuff, probably under 12s, maybe 14s, you can get a bit more into the X's and O's. But look, I think the X's and O's are important. It's important to learn the game, but I think these days it's more important to learn how to read and react than just play basketball, because that's the way the game's going. All the kids that I know that played for a team, Andrew Gaze's old team, the Melbourne Tigers, they ran the shuffle offense from the time they were 11 years old to the time they finished with their club at 18, 19. And what I've noticed from most of those players is they can't read and react because they're so structured and regimented with their junior upbringing that all of a sudden a guy goes ISO, where do I go? I'm on the weak side. This happens. What do I do? They don't know where to go because everything was tailored towards the shuffle. It was a regimented robotic offense, and I think that then hurts you if you leave that. And I equate that towards getting young kids at a young age to do these fancy X's and O's that you see on TV. Now, technique, good habits, doing things the right way, you can teach that from day one. But as far as overloading a kid at 7, 8 years old with all that stuff, I think it's a no-go zone. You?
First of all, was Andrew Gaze the guy who sent you the message about I swear too much, by the way?
It might have been a burner account. Possibly.
God damn. What would they call it? Seton Hall gray-haired assassin at AOL.com?
The Grey Mamba.
Yeah, the Grey Mamba. All right. Well, with this, I'm very non-competitive. I don't really care about wins and losses. I never did when I was in the NBA. I never did. It didn't really bother me either way. With my son's very young. My daughter's 8. My son's hasn't even turned 3 yet. But I've already sort of played this through my head. If they want to have fun and run around, I'm just going to let them do that. If they come to me at some point and say, Dad, I'm serious about this, I want to get better or whatever, then I'd sort of be a little more serious if they were a little older. What I would teach them to do is always be respectful of their coach, of their teammates, work hard, put some time into it. And just sort of work, they don't have to be good at it. They could just run around and they could have fun. Doesn't matter if they score 2 points, 20 points, get one play called to them, 1,000 plays called to them. It doesn't matter. If they want to be serious about it and they want to take it serious, I'll put some time in. Only if they show that they're serious about it. And then, you get a little more serious. I don't really care about X's and O's. I think it's the most overrated part of the game. The game is way overcoached and way undertaught. And you got to teach players fundamentals of how to be good at whatever they're trying to do, shooting, layups, ball handling, defense, what have you. And then you put them in as many competitive situations that you can, 2-on-2, 3-on-3, 4-on-4, and let them play and let them figure some stuff out. And the best thing that could happen to your kids is to get the shit kicked out of them, not physically, just sort of on a court, and make mistakes and be bad. And figure some things out and have to dust themselves off, pick themselves up, and then have to do it again. And then until they do some things right. And I think it's a lot more important to actually know sort of how to compete, how to play with a team, how to react to things, how to think, rather than having some coach that's going to run 500 plays that ain't going to teach you shit. That's just going to teach you how to be in a place and a spot on the floor. And I think that's why you become a robot. And you see a lot of those players in the NBA that come from college programs that only run systems, and they don't really teach them how to play. There's this game that I learned at a camp called Snow Valley Basketball Camp in Santa Barbara, California, one of the best teaching camps I've ever in the world, actually. And they play this game called Cutthroat, and it's 4-on-4. And they have all these rules about how many passes you got to make, and cutting. You got to cut after you got to move after you pass, and you got to thank. If you score a basket, you got to thank the guy who passed you, your teammate. There's a lot of great rules, but it teaches kids how to think and how to play and how to just play. No plays, nothing. It just has some rules where everybody's got to touch it. You got to square up when you catch it. You got to thank the passer when you score. You got to talk. You got to do all these things. And it just teaches. I think it's important to teach kids how to play. And don't worry about the X's and O's. If they want to be serious when they're 15, 16, 14, whatever, then that's another conversation for another day. When they're young, just let them have fun. Let them compete. As long as they're a good teammate, they respect the game and they respect the coach, then you're good to go.
Yeah, I agree. And there's also a beauty of winning and losing, and winning the right way, losing the right way. We've spoken about that at length, so we won't go into that. But yeah, let the kids be kids. Not even outside of sport. Let them get dirty. Let them go do some jumping puddle. Let them go do whatever, man. Like, you tell them enough times to stop jumping off the couch, and they're going to hurt themselves. Eventually, you got to let them hurt themselves to learn, right? Like, there's no other way they're going to learn. So, take the bubble wrap off, parents. Take the helicopter parents away. Let your kids be kids. There'll be plenty of time to be a stress head adult like we are. So thanks for that question, Andrew. Moving on. Andrew and Pro, really loving you guys' podcast. Super raw and honest, and love both your insights into the basketball world. I've played college ball in the States along with a few years pro in Europe. Question for you, Andrew. How did you balance wanting to be aggressive to score yourself with getting your teammates open and sharing the ball? I sometimes find it hard to balance the two of them and feel like you did this really well, especially late in your career. Was it a mindset thing? How did you find a good balance? And for Pro, have you coached any players that struggled to find this balance? Was there anything you did to help them not to overshare or to be too selfish? Thanks in advance for your response. Keep up the good work. That's from Nathaniel. Why don't you take this one first, Pro?
When you have this mindset of, being aggressive, you always want players to be aggressive. First of all, you got to sort of have them fit the role that they're going to have for that team. If the head coach wants them to be scorers, they want them to be more aggressive, then you obviously, you sort of lean them in that direction of being a little more aggressive, trying to score. If it's just, hey, sitting in the corner, you wait for somebody to get double teamed, they're going to pass to you, you're not going to get a lot of shots, and then we get ready for that role. So what I always tell a player is, look, if you have an open shot, you take it, especially if that's a shot that we want you to take. If you drive it and you're aggressive to score, if you're trying to work so hard to get your shot off, where you got to take these contested shots where if it's off 1 foot and all this bullshit that you see a lot of these players do today, then you're just working too hard. You're not built for that. That's not good team basketball. If you drive it and you have it where you're going to force two defenders on the ball, then you got to share the ball. You got to share it to an open player. Somebody's open. So I try to have players take as many mild to uncontested shots as possible. And then if there's somebody open, you got to look. But you're going to make mistakes where you're going to take tough shots at first, but you got to learn what's a good shot for you. But you got to be aggressive and you got to look. If you're going to force multiple defenders to you, then you make plays for other people. If the play's called for you not to shoot and to give it to somebody, obviously you're going to give it up. But if you have an opening, especially on a shot that a team wants you to take, and it's going to be a good shot for you, then you say, yeah, that's the shot we want you to take. It's all trial and error. We watch film on it. We talk to players about it. We continue to work on things. We continue to talk to them after games, let them decompress a little bit, and then talk to them about it. It's going to be a lot of trial and error, and then until you get it. It's not going to be perfect a lot of times, but you got to continuously tell them their role, what you expect from them, and then be aggressive. But if you see multiple defenders, you see you got to continue to try to make plays for your teammates and try to play winning basketball. But sometimes it's not a direct black and white answer. It's sometimes a lot of gray in it where they got to make decisions on a little bit of a tough shot, or you make that play to somebody else. But you continuously communicate and give them feedback and try to help them through those times and let them pick themselves up and then, survive to play another day,
Yeah, no doubt. And I've gone in two different aspects of my basketball life, like being the number 1-2 option for 5 or 6 years, and then obviously being a role player. So I kind of understand both sides of it. And look, probably a knock on me through my career when I was the 1 and 2 option was I was probably too unselfish. I needed to be more selfish at times to try and get my own and get buckets and get us going. But I was always taught to make the right play. So what I mean by this is, if some guy's rotated to me, I'm going to make that pass. And then sometimes you're making it to a guy that's not a 3-point shooter and your coach is like, what are you doing? Like you've basically thrown it to a guy that we don't want to take that shot anyway. Just take it yourself. So I struggle with that a little bit at times, and there is no right answer for it. I think with guys that, like, if you factor in Jordan Clarkson, and the reason I'll mention him is because the Jazz game's on right now and they're absolutely mauling Orlando, but he's a guy that comes off the bench. His mentality has to be super uber aggressive no matter what. He's coming off the bench for 15, 20, 25 minutes. We need you to get 20 for us. We don't, if you have a few assists every now and then and get others involved, but that's a guy that's not going to play 40 minutes. So, you don't have to worry about him being too selfish because you can dictate his game by his minutes. Whereas if you're a starting point guard, that's a whole different story. You know, you don't want to be taking 25 field goals a game if you're a starting point guard, because you got to be cognizant of, I've got a guy that needs to get shots. I've got a big guy that probably won't rebound or defend as hard if we don't give him some love every now and then. I've got a 3-point shooter over there. So there's a lot that goes into it. Like Pro said, you can never fault coming out of the gates being aggressive, and then you just adapt to, okay, they're doubling me early. I need to get this pass out earlier. Okay, they're not doubling for a couple of minutes because they're in foul trouble. They're in the bonus if they foul me. So now I can be a little bit more aggressive. And Steph, I always bring up Steph. Steph was really good at this, and he was really good at understanding, especially towards the later end of my time with him, of knowing when a guy was down on confidence and I need to get him an open shot, or I need to keep Bogues engaged, setting good screens for me, so I'm going to run a lob play for him, or whatever it was, right? And that comes down to just basketball IQ. So it all depends with your role. There's a lot of different factors, and like Pro said, it's something that you got to learn along the way, and there's not one real answer for everybody.
Yeah, and if you're a really good player, you know, I remember with Kobe, like, you know, Bogues talked about Steph being good at, like, you know, if a guy's struggling, give him the ball. Like, we would talk about, you know, before games, we would talk about, you know, I'd ask him all the time, how's Pau doing? How's Lamar doing? You know, why don't you get these guys some easy looks first? You could sort of lighten up on your offensive load the first quarter. Get these guys easy looks. They're going to be doubling you, obviously. Get them easy looks early. Set the table. That's what I used to call it. Just set the table early. Build your lead, set the table where you don't really have to work that hard to get offense. And now step on the gas, second quarter, get into the third, you know, the middle eight or whatever you want to call it, last 4 minutes of the third, first 4 minutes of the fourth, actually, and really step on the gas and try to really be aggressive. But like, if you have players that are sort of like a little sensitive or not having a good week, you know, you want to set the table early, especially if you're going to be, you know, getting double teamed a lot. Give those guys easy looks, get your team on the board a little bit, and then you could be aggressive, a little bit more aggressive later in the game. And it just gives the team a different look, because usually at most levels, if a player is the best player in the team, your opponent's looking for you to like force all these shots, especially in today's game, where if you're setting the table early, getting them easy looks, and then be aggressive scoring, now you're talking about a team that's really hard to stop, especially if you're an elite level player at that level. So yeah, I agree with Bogues, like set the table early, you know, and then be aggressive trying to score, unless you get a big time mismatch, and then you want to be aggressive, you know, looking to score right off the bat. But it's always good to set the table and then be aggressive looking for yours. It just makes everything a little easier.
And as I've got this game in the background, Orlando, Utah, don't be, I believe it was RJ Hampton. They are down 115-77 right now in the fourth quarter with 8 minutes left. He's on a fast break, tries to dunk on someone, gets fouled, and does push-ups. Down for what?
Does push-ups.
What are they down? 35 points? Don't be that guy. Anyway, that's just something I just had to say because I just saw him. Why is he? You know, I'm too strong for you to foul me hard. Yeah, but you're down 37 points, buddy. Like, you know, cut it out. So
Jesus Christ.
Just a little old man rant. But we had 2 more questions. We'll move on from those and save those for next week as we're biding time with our long-winded answers. You have some things for me, don't you, Pro?
Oh, my fault. Yeah, for sure. My bad about the long-winded answers, my man.
Oh, it's both of us. We talk too much. You've got some slang. Yeah, you've got some slang for me.
Yeah, you gave me the slang thing last week, the citizenship test, whatever the fuck you called it, from Australia. I'm not only going to give you slang question for the United States, I'm even going to be better. Boston slang. And see what the fuck you know about Boston slang, all right? So, you know, Boston slang is probably the best slang on the fucking planet. On the fucking planet.
I've seen Departed. Does that help?
Departed, The Town, Black Mass.
Oh, The Town.
All of it.
The Town is a great movie.
Spencer for Hire, City on a fucking Hill with Kevin Bacon on Showtime. All that shit. All right. I'm going to give you about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 questions. I'm going to give you an easy one first. Wicked.
Wicked?
Wicked.
The word wicked, I think it means awesome, very good, or wicked can also mean like a wicked witch. So
it said, okay, it's very. So very. Like wicked good, wicked awesome. You know, like wicked is like very.
50% that. I'll get 0.5 for that.
You know what we're gonna do? Let's erase that shit. I'm gonna combine these two. I'm going to combine two because Wicked's good, but it has to be with something else. So I'm going to give you two for the price of one. All right, so here's the first one. Wicked Pissa.
Wicked Pisser.
Wicked Pissa. Pissa.
Oh, wow. It's awesome. A very pisser. It's very rainy outside.
Fuck no. Awesome. Very awesome. That kid's Wicked Pissa. This fucking day Wicked Pissa. It's awesome. 0 for 1.
Okay.
All right. Clicker.
Spell it.
Clicka. Clicker.
Oh, my goodness. Wow. You're killing me. I'm not going to get any of these. A clicker can only relate to Australia, but a clicker is...
I'll give you a hint. It's an object.
It's an object. A clicker. Oh, my goodness. I have no idea. Remote control.
Remote control. There you go. Hey, Pat, give me the fucking clicker, would you?
Oh, beautiful. Got one, baby.
So clicker.
Okay.
1 for 2. Not bad. All right. Paula. Pahla. Paula.
P-A-H-L-A, man. What? Jeez. Okay. Parlor. Would that be a gambling reference?
No, fuck no. It's a fucking living room. Hey, why don't we watch TV in the parlor? All right, kids, we're going to go to the parlor. Hey, look.
Are you
we're a fucked up community.
But can you explain why it's called parlor? Is there a reason?
No, this says Paula. That's what it is. I thought my name was asshole until I was about 11. So, hey, that's just the environment we live in.
Okay, next one.
All right, so Paula, clicker, bubbler.
Oh, bubbler. That's a
Bubbla.
That's a water fountain, right? Yeah, drink fountain. I know that
that's
one.
the easy one.
Yep.
All right. Nosa.
What?
Nosa. Nosuh. Nosa.
Oh, man. Not sure?
Not sure?
Yeah, that's my answer. Not sure.
No. Not close, but no cigar. No way. No fucking way. Nosa. No fucking way.
Yeah.
I'll give you one more.
I need this one to win because you were 2 for 5, so I'm going to try go 3 for 6.
Yeah. I'm going to give you an easy one. Cellar.
Cellar, spell it. Cellar.
Yeah, Cellar.
Basement.
There you go.
Bang.
Got it.
We use that one as well. Europeans use that one as well, so and Australians, I think. But yeah, I win.
Yeah.
Unlucky. Have you seen F is for Family?
No. It's good?
Yeah, so it's Bill Burr. It's his kind of his childhood in cartoon form, and it's got him in it as himself, but it's in cartoon form. I highly recommend it. I think it's on Netflix, F is for Family, and it's just his Boston dad just being an asshole to him. It's
great.
It's very good. You'll like it.
They use on this show with Kevin Bacon. It's a pretty good show. Not a great show, but it's a good show. City on the Hill. It takes place in my home. A lot of it in the first season of my hometown in Boston, in Revere Beach. It's a town right outside of Boston, but it's about Kevin Bacon, who's this like corrupt FBI agent. It's fucking great because they use every slang on Boston on almost every fucking show. It's great. It's for me, it's more funny and it's actually pretty factual because a lot of the things they talk about is stuff that was dealing with in Boston in the like early to mid 90s. But yeah, but I'll check that F is for Family show out.
F is for Family is good. Yeah, but probably need some subtitles watching that movie.
No doubt about it. Self-admitted.
All right, man. Another one wrapped up. Hopefully we didn't bore you too much with our slang rants, but thanks to everyone tuning in. Numbers are doing well. Appreciate all the support. And once again, thanks to Mike at Hoop Consultants. We will see you all next week.
Thanks, fellas. Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
All right, man. Thanks.